Rain falls softly over the gardens of Versailles, a fine autumn mist settling across the gravel paths and clipped hedges. Somewhere beyond the tall windows, the fountains have gone still for the night, their water glassy and silver under a thin scattering of clouds. Inside the palace, a single corridor stretches long and golden, lit only by candlelight, the flames trembling gently in their silver holders as a draft moves slowly through the halls. It is the late 17th century, and the court of the Sun King has, for now, gone quiet. The great chandeliers above the staterooms have been dimmed, their crystal drops catching only faint slivers of light. Outside, the rain taps in a soft, even rhythm against the window panes, a sound as old as the palace itself. In a small antechamber near the king's apartments, a fire glows low on the hearth. Its embers shift now and then, releasing a faint orange light across the tapestried walls. The tapestries themselves, woven decades earlier in the royal workshops, depict quiet hunting scenes, forests, and rivers, their colors softened now by years of candle smoke and gentle fading. A single attendant moves through the room, unhurried, adjusting the fire screen so that the warmth spreads evenly. His footsteps are muffled by the thick carpet beneath him, a deep blue woven with faint gold thread. He pauses for a moment, simply listening to the rain, before continuing his quiet rounds. At Versailles, the day had been long, as court days often were, from the moment the sun rose over the eastern parterre. Life within the palace had followed its ancient, unhurried rhythm. Servants had risen before dawn to lay fresh linens, to polish silver candlesticks, to sweep the long galleries where courtiers would later walk in silk and velvet. The king himself had followed the elaborate ceremony of the lever, the formal rising, in which nobles of the highest rank were permitted to witness even the small, ordinary moments of his mourning. It was a strange custom to modern ears, this blending of grandeur and simplicity, but within these walls it was simply how each day began. By midday, the halls had filled with a low hum of conversation, the soft rustle of fabric, the occasional distant note of a harpsichord drifting from some far room. Ladies in wide skirts moved slowly along the galleries, pausing at windows to watch the gardeners below trimming hedges into perfect geometric shapes. Now, as evening settles fully across the palace, that hum has faded into something gentler. The great clock in the Hall of Mirrors ticks softly, its pendulum swinging in slow, patient arcs. Moonlight, filtered through drifting rain clouds, falls faintly across the polished floor, mixing with the last warm light of a few remaining candles. In the kitchens far below the state apartments, the last work of the evening winds down. Copper pots, scrubbed clean, hang in neat rows along the stone walls, catching faint gleams of firelight. A cook wipes flour from a worn wooden table, her movements slow and practiced after years of the same quiet routine. The scent of bread, baked hours earlier, still lingers faintly in the warm air. Outside the kitchen door, a boy carries the last basket of vegetables in from the covered walk, his boots leaving damp prints across the stone floor. He sets the basket down gently, careful not to disturb the stillness that has settled over the room, and steps back out into the soft rain to close the shutters for the night. Above, in the private apartments reserved for the royal family, a different kind of quiet reigns. Here, the walls are lined with pale silk, embroidered with delicate garlands of flowers. A writing desk sits near the window, its surface neat, a single unfinished letter resting beneath a small brass paperweight shaped like a fleur-de-lis. A lady of the court sits nearby in a low chair, her needlework resting loosely in her lap. She has paused, as many do at this hour, simply to watch the rain trace slow paths down the glass. Her breathing has grown slow and even, the kind of stillness that only comes at the close of a long, ceremonial day. In the Queen's apartments, on the far side of the palace, a similar calm has settled. Her ladies move about the rooms in soft slippers, folding shawls and setting aside the evening's needlework, their voices lowered almost to whispers. A small dog sleeps curled beside the hearth, its breathing slow and steady, undisturbed by the gentle movement around it. One of the ladies draws back a heavy curtain just slightly, glancing out at the rain-soaked gardens before letting the fabric fall close again. The room smells faintly of lavender, sprinkled among the linens earlier that day, mixing softly with the smoke of a nearly spent candle. Somewhere down the corridor, a clock chimes the hour, its sound muffled by thick walls and thicker carpets. The Queen herself is already retired, her long day of audiences and correspondence finished at last. Her ladies move quietly now, extinguishing candles one by one, leaving only a single small lamp burning near the door, its light steady and low, enough to guide anyone who might still pass through the night. Elsewhere in the palace, in a long room lined floor to ceiling with leather-bound volumes, the royal library holds its own particular stillness. A single scholar remains here past the usual hour, seated at a broad oak table, a candle burning low beside an open manuscript. He turns each page slowly, careful not to disturb the fragile paper, his eyes moving with the patient attention of someone who has spent a lifetime among books. The library smells of old leather and dust, of ink and beeswax, a scent unique to rooms that have held knowledge for generations. Outside its tall windows, the rain continues its soft rhythm, blurring the gardens beyond into soft gray shapes. The scholar pauses, rubs his eyes gently, and glances toward the window, watching the water trace slow paths down the glass before returning to his reading. In time, even he grows weary. He closes the manuscript with care, setting a slim ribbon between its pages to mark his place, and rises from the table, his candle he carries with him, its small flame the only light moving through the darkened rows of shelves as he makes his way toward the door, leaving the library once more to silence and shadow. Beyond the library, past a narrow gallery hung with portraits of long-departed courtiers, lies the palace's grand orangery, its rows of citrus trees kept warm through the cooler months. Tonight, the great glass doors remain closed against the rain, though a single gardener still moves quietly among the pots, checking that each tree has been properly watered before the household fully retires. The air here is warm and faintly sweet, scented with orange blossom even this late in the year. Moonlight filters through the tall arched windows, falling in long pale strips across the stone floor, illuminating leaves still dotted with the last drops of an earlier watering. The gardener works without hurry, his lantern swinging gently at his side, casting soft shifting shadows among the trees. Satisfied at last that all is well, He extinguishes his lantern and steps out into the covered walkway beyond. Drawing the heavy doors closed behind him, the orangery settles into darkness, its rows of trees standing silent and patient, waiting for the pale light of another morning. Versailles was never truly quiet in daylight. Every hour carried its own small rituals, from the changing of the guard in their pale blue coats to the delivery of fresh flowers to the royal apartments, cut each morning from the palace's own gardens and carried in wide baskets through the service corridors. Yet even in a palace built for spectacle, evening always brought its own gentler ceremony. Candles were lit room by room, a task performed with quiet precision by servants trained in the exact order in which each chandelier and sconce should be filled. The scent of beeswax mixed softly with the smell of rain drifting in through cracked windows. In the gardens themselves, now empty of visitors, the famous fountains stood silent, their basins reflecting only the pale gray sky above. During the day, water would leap and arc in elaborate patterns, timed to the king's walks through the grounds. But at night, the gardens kept their own company, the only sound the steady patter of rain against still water. Beyond the terraces, the Grand Canal stretched long and dark, its surface rippling gently under the falling rain. In summer, small boats would glide across its calm waters, carrying courtiers on quiet evening excursions. Tonight, the canal lay empty, its stillness broken only by the occasional drop falling from an overhanging branch. Inside the palace once more, a quiet procession of servants moves through the staterooms, carrying trays of dishes back toward the kitchens. The evening meal, a modest affair by the standards of grand banquets, has concluded some time ago. What remains is only the soft clink of porcelain, carefully stacked, and the low murmur of servants speaking in hushed, practiced tones. In one of the smaller salons, a few courtiers linger by the fire, their conversation slow and unhurried. They speak of small things, the weather, a letter received from a distant relative, a piece of music recently composed for the court. There is no urgency in their words, only the gentle rhythm of people winding down after a long day spent within these walls. A musician, seated near the far window, plays softly on a small clavichord, the notes barely rising above the crackle of the fire. The melody is simple, repetitive in a soothing way, the kind of music meant not to command attention, but to drift quietly through a room, filling silence without disturbing it. Candles gutter low in their holders, their light growing dimmer as the hour advances. One by one, the courtiers rise, offering soft goodnights to one another before making their way toward their own apartments, their footsteps fading into the long corridors beyond. Not far from the salon, in a small chamber set aside for the palace physician, a quiet visit is drawing to its close. An elderly courtier, troubled only by the ordinary weariness of age, has been resting here since early evening, attended by a physician who speaks in low, reassuring tones. A cup of warm herbal infusion sits nearby, half finished, its gentle scent of chamomile and mint filling the small room. The physician checks his patient's pulse with practiced calm, nodding to himself in quiet satisfaction. Outside, the rain continues its soft murmur against the window, a sound the old courtier finds oddly comforting. Before long, his eyes grow heavy, his breathing slow and even, and the physician rises quietly, drawing a light blanket over him before stepping out to let him rest. In the corridor beyond, the physician pauses for a moment beside a tall window, watching the gardens below fade further into darkness. It has been, he reflects, an ordinary evening, much like countless others he has known within these walls. He continues on his way, his footsteps soft against the stone, toward his own quiet rest at the end of a long and gentle day. High above the main palace, in a small tower room reached by a narrow spiral stair, a court astronomer keeps his own late watch. His instruments, delicate brass devices for measuring the movement of stars, sit arranged carefully upon a wide table near the window. Tonight, the clouds are thinning at last, revealing here and there a faint scattering of stars between the drifting gray. He makes a few careful notes in a leather-bound journal, his handwriting small and precise, recording the little he has been able to observe through the shifting clouds. The rain has softened now to little more than a whisper, and through the tower window, he can see the pale outline of the gardens far below, the fountains dark and still, the hedges blurred into soft shapes by distance and mist. Content with his evening's modest observations, he closes his journal and extinguishes his lamp, allowing his eyes to adjust slowly to the faint starlight beyond the glass. For a long moment, he simply watches the sky, in no hurry to descend the narrow stair, content instead to let the quiet of the tower settle fully around him. Throughout the palace, similar scenes repeat themselves in smaller, quieter ways. A duchess reads by candlelight, her book resting on a small table beside a cup of now cold tisane. A young nobleman writes slowly in a journal, recording nothing of great importance, only the small details of an ordinary day, the color of the sky at dusk, the taste of the evening soup, the sound of rain against his window. In the stables beyond the main courtyard, grooms move quietly among the horses, checking each stall before settling into their own modest quarters nearby. The horses shift gently in the straw, their breathing slow and steady, undisturbed by the soft patter of rain on the stable roof above. Even the palace guards, stationed at intervals along the outer walls, seem to move more slowly at this hour, their measured steps falling into a calm, unhurried rhythm. Their lanterns cast small pools of warm light along the wet stone, flickering gently whenever the wind stirs. As the night deepens, the rain over Versailles begins to ease further still, fading into a light drizzle that barely disturbs the surface of fountains. The clouds above thin slightly, allowing a pale wash of moonlight to fall across the gardens, silvering the wet hedges and gravel paths. Along the great terrace overlooking the Parterre d'Eau, rows of marble statues stand silent in the moonlight, their carved faces softened by shadow, their shoulders gleaming faintly where rain still clings to the stone. By day, these figures watch over crowds of visitors and courtiers alike. Tonight, they keep company only with the falling mist and the slow drift of clouds above. Inside, the last few candles in the great galleries are extinguished, leaving only the faint glow of moonlight through tall windows to illuminate the empty halls. The hall of mirrors, so brilliant and crowded by day, now lies silent, its countless reflections holding only soft, shifting patterns of pale light. In the private chapel, a single lamp burns low near the altar, its flames steady despite the quiet draft that moved through the vast space. The chapel, empty now of worshippers, holds only silence and the faint scent of incense lingering from the evening's final prayers. Far below, in the servants' quarters, the last few candles are being carefully snuffed out, one by one, as the household settles fully into rest. A housekeeper makes her final rounds, checking that fires have been properly banked, that doors are secured, that all is as it should be before the palace slips fully into its nightly quiet. She pauses for a moment near a small window, watching the rain continue its gentle fall over the garden below. The gravel paths glisten faintly under the moonlight, and somewhere in the distance, the Grand Canal lies dark and still, reflecting only the faintest traces of the clouded sky above. Satisfied that all is well, she turns from the window and makes her way back toward her own small room, her footsteps soft against the stone floor. Behind her, the palace settles ever deeper into silence, its many rooms and corridors holding only the quiet company of sleeping courtiers, banked fires, and softly falling rain. Outside, the gardens of Versailles stretch on beneath the night sky, their careful geometry softened now by darkness and mist. The fountains, silent since evening, wait patiently for morning, when once again they will rise in their practiced arcs of water and light. For now, they hold only stillness, their basins collecting the last gentle drops of rain. The Grand Canal lies like a long, dark mirror beneath the clouds, undisturbed, its surface occasionally rippling where a single drop falls from the branches above. Far beyond the palace walls, the countryside of France sleeps quietly under the same soft rain, fields and forests holding their own patient stillness. Within the palace, candle by candle, room by room, the light is faded into gentle darkness. The great chandeliers hang empty of flame, their crystal drops catching only the faintest silver traces of moonlight. The long galleries, so full of movement and conversation by day, now hold only silence and the soft, steady rhythm of rain against old stone. Somewhere above, the clouds continue their slow drift across the sky, just beginning to clear, revealing here and there a single faint star. The Palace of Versailles, vast and ornate, seems for tonight to become something simpler, a quiet house standing patiently beneath the rain, its many hearts of stone and gold settling gently into sleep. In a modest chamber tucked near the palace chapel, one of the younger pages lies already half asleep, a small tallow candle burning low on the table beside his narrow bed. He had spent the day running messages between the staterooms and the stables. His legs tired now from the long stone corridors, he has walked more times than he could count. Sleep comes easily to him tonight, drawn down gently by the steady rhythm of rain against a small shuttered window. Down the corridor, an older valet folds the day's discarded garments with slow, careful hands, setting aside a velvet coat still faintly scented with orange blossom from the orangery below. He works without hurry, each fold practiced and familiar, before setting the coat aside and turning at last toward his own rest. The candle beside him gutters once, then steadies, its small flame the only movement left in the quiet room. Even the palace cats, permitted to wander freely through the lower service corridors, have found their places for the night. One lies curled near the kitchen hearth, its fur warmed by the last of the banked embers. Another watches from a windowsill, half asleep, its eyes drifting closed and open again as the rain continues its soft, unhurried fall beyond the glass. Further along the terrace, where the marble statues keep their silent watch, a night gardener makes one final round before retiring. He carries no lantern now, finding his way instead by the pale wash of moonlight breaking gently through the thinning clouds. He pauses beside a low stone bench, brushing away a scatter of fallen leaves, before continuing on toward the small gatehouse where he will spend the remainder of the night. From here, the palace rises before him, its many windows dark now save for a few faint candles still burning in distant rooms. He has watched the same view for many years, through many seasons of rain and sun, and finds in a quiet comfort that never quite fades. For a moment he simply stands, listening to the soft drip of water from the hedges, before turning at last toward his own rest. Within the palace, the last sounds of the evening grow fainter still. A clock somewhere in the depths of the building chimes softly, its tones swallowed almost entirely by thick walls and heavy curtains. Somewhere above, a shutter creaks gently in the last remaining breeze, then falls still again, as though even the wind has grown tired and settled for the night. In the long gallery leading toward the king's private study, a single candle remains lit, tended by a servant whose duty it is to keep watch until the very last hour. He sits quietly in a low chair nearby, his eyes heavy, his thoughts drifting slowly towards sleep even as he keeps his post. The rain outside has softened now to the gentlest whisper, barely audible above the quiet crackle of the candle's flame. Beyond the palace walls, the small town that has grown up around Versailles lies equally still. Modest houses, home to the many craftsmen, merchants, and servants who support the great household, sit dark and quiet along narrow cobbled streets. A baker's oven, banked for the night, holds its warmth quietly behind closed shutters, ready to be stirred to life again long before dawn. A night watchman walks his slow route through the empty streets, his lantern swinging gently at his side, casting long soft shadows against wet stone walls. He nods to no one, for there is no one to greet at this hour, and continues his familiar path past darkened windows and silent doorways, the rain now little more than a fine mist settling over the sleeping town. Back within the palace, in the vast kitchens now fully quiet, a single ember glows faintly in the great hearth, banked carefully to hold its warmth until morning. The long wooden tables, scrubbed clean, stand empty beneath rows of hanging copper pots, their surfaces catching only the faintest gleam of the fire's last light. Tomorrow, before the sun is fully risen, this room will once again fill with warmth and motion, but for now it rests, patient and still. In the pantry beyond, jars of preserved fruit line the shelves in neat, orderly rows, their contents gathered from the palace's own orchards earlier in the season. The air here is cool and faintly sweet, carrying the last traces of the day's baking. Nothing stirs, save for the occasional soft settling of the old wooden shelves, creaking gently as the building itself seems to exhale and rest. In the great stables at the edge of the palace grounds, an old groom sits on an overturned crate near the doorway, watching the rain fall in soft sheets beyond the open half-door. The horses behind him shift occasionally in their stalls, their breathing slow and heavy, the warm smell of hay and leather filling the dim space. He has worked among these animals for most of his life, and finds in their quiet company a comfort he has never quite been able to explain to others. A young stable boy sleeps soundly in a small loft above, tucked beneath a ruffled blanket, undisturbed by the occasional soft stamp of a hoof below. The old groom glances up once, listens for a moment to the boy's steady breathing, and returns his gaze to the rain, content simply to sit in the stillness a while longer before closing the stable for the night. Near the edge of the formal gardens, where manicured hedges give way to a quieter, wilder grove of old trees, a small stone pavilion offers shelter from the last of the evening rain. Long ago, it was built as a place for courtiers to rest during warm summer afternoons, shaded from the sun. Tonight, it stands empty, its stone benches damp and cool, its carved columns catching only the faintest silver traces of moonlight through the drifting clouds above. Somewhere nearby, an owl calls softly once more, its voice carrying easily across the still air before fading into silence again. The trees around the pavilion sway gently, releasing small showers of collected rainwater whenever the breeze passes through their branches. For a long while, nothing else moves at all, the grove settling into the same deep stillness that has claimed the rest of the grounds. Within the palace once more, in a modest room set aside for the royal seamstresses, bolts of fine fabric lie stacked neatly along tall shelves, silks and velvets in soft, muted colors, waiting for the next season's gowns and coats. A single lamp burns low near the door, left lit by habit rather than need, its small flame steady in the still air. Pins and needles rest carefully in a shallow dish upon the work table, beside a half-finished embroidery pattern of pale roses. The room smells faintly of lavender sachets, tucked among the fabric to keep away moths, mixing gently with the lingering scent of the day's ironing. Nothing moves here now but the small flame of the lamp and the faint drift of rain-cooled air slipping into a narrow gap beneath the door. Even the palace menagerie, home to a small collection of rare birds kept for court's quiet enjoyment, has settled fully into rest. Beneath soft cloth covers draped gently over their cages, the birds sleep undisturbed, their feathers fluffed against the cool night air. A keeper checks on them briefly, lantern held low so as not to startle them, before withdrawing quietly and latching the door behind him. Outside, the rain has thinned now to almost nothing, the last few drops falling slow and scattered from the eaves above. The gardens beyond lie hushed and dark, the fountains dry and silent, the hedges glistening faintly under what little moonlight manages to break through the retreating clouds. At last, deep within the heart of the palace, even the king's own study falls fully silent. The servant keeping watch there has finally allowed himself to drift into a light doze, his chin resting gently against his chest, the single remaining candle burning low but steady beside him. Papers lie neatly stacked upon the great desk, the day's correspondence finished and set aside until morning. Through the tall windows, the gardens stretch out dark and peaceful beneath a sky now mostly clear, a scattering of stars visible at last between the last thin clouds. The Palace of Versailles, for all its grandeur and ceremony, rests tonight much like any quiet home, its many rooms holding nothing more than sleeping courtiers, banked fires, and the last soft whisper rain fading gently into silence. If you found peace in these stories, you are welcome to return for more quiet histories.